Hey everyone, my name is Jenna and I am one of the students of the Masters of Education in Sustainability, Creativity, and Innovation at Cape Breton University. Today I'm here with Elena Jean, who is co-director of the new documentary series, Coextinction, and she is here with me to talk a little bit about the film. Hi Elena.
Hey Jenna, thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked to chat.
Great. So to start off, I think it would be great if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the film.
Sure. So yeah, my name is Elena. I am a filmmaker and conservationist here on the west coast of Canada. I currently live in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I'm working on a documentary film series called Coextinction. And this series is about the endangered southern resident killer whale population. But as the title of the film implies, it's actually about co-extinction. So these orcas are critically endangered because of the decline in the salmon populations here on the West Coast, as well as a myriad of other reasons. So the film series really looks at how all life is interconnected. And when you lose one species, you usually lose other species with it. So yeah, my role is co-director and co-host, and I've been working on this film series for about a year now, just about full time, and it's been an exciting whirlwind of a time.
Great. So, as the film says, it's titled Coextinction. So, could you describe what that term means, as well as the term coexistence, which is, I know, another big message with the film?
Yeah. Actually, when we were thinking about naming the film, we went through a bunch of different names, and I suggested at some point, because the film, the greater premise of the series is about extinction, from the big picture. It's not just about the potential extinction of these orcas. It's about the extinction of salmon populations. And then to extend beyond that, bird's eye view, this greater extinction crisis that we're facing on a planetary level, the sixth great extinction is now. So I was thinking about titles for the film and extinction, thinking about the word extinction, and then the word coexistence kind of came into my head, and combining coexistence and extinction, coextinction. And I thought it was this brilliant play on words, but in reality, actually, coextinction is a real word. It's just not commonly used, I guess, in the mainstream world. You know, Coextinction means, as the name implies, if you have the sudden loss or the disappearance, decline of one species due to the interconnectedness of life, you're going to lose other species with that species. So you can think of, well, in this case, the example of orcas disappearing because they rely on salmon, and so they're starving because there's not enough salmon. But you can think about countless other examples. If there were a certain type of bug that a spider ate, and then suddenly that bug disappeared, or that a bird ate a certain type of bug, and that bug disappeared, the bird's going to face issues. So that's kind of the idea behind coextinction. And then coexistence is, of course, the opposite of coextinction. And it's something that we are trying to bring to our mainstream audience, this idea that we should all coexist, and that we have to think about going about our lives in a way that is more from a coexisting standpoint. Like how can we coexist? We are all a part. We're not separate from the ecosystems, from the world around us. We're a part of it. So we have to be aware of how we're impacting the life around us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think with this film, even though its focus is the southern resident killer whales, like you really do brought in that message beyond that, and trying to really connect with people that we're all interconnected, and every ecosystem is so interconnected, and we have to start kind of realizing the impacts from one action to another,
Mm-hmm.
and so forth.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah.
So I wanted to jump into kind of a unique part of the filming process that not many documentary series, I think, do, and that's getting involved in a political campaign. Obviously, the film is meant to be a lot around awareness and education and kind of spreading this message, but during the film, you actually started your own campaign to breach the lower four Snake River dams. I wanted to, like, if you could just talk a little bit about that experience, kind of how it started and its impact, that would be great.
Yeah, yeah. Documentary filmmaking is a funny thing because, um, you're suddenly very immersed in the story. You can't. It's hard to actually separate yourself from what's going on to be that fly on the wall. And the way that we wanted to approach making this film was kind of we're going on a journey. We are the students of this situation and coming to understand and speaking to all the different constituents involved and trying to really get a good understanding of what was going on so that we could relay it to the audience. But we're going on the journey, so we have a limited understanding before filming of what we obviously had some understanding, but as we went through the process of filming and meeting all of these people and going out to these places and seeing things such as the four lower Snake River dams, we kind of came to understand our depth of understanding increased, which we couldn't just stand by in some of these situations, and some of them really kind of hit home as like we need to do something about this and we need to act fast. So we became a part of the story ourselves. Um, yeah, so with the four lower Snake River dams, actually, it was definitely it's one of the issues covered in the film. So just to give a little bit of background, the four lower Snake River dams are these big dams. They were built in the mid 1900s in Washington state along the Snake River. The Snake River is a place historically where salmon in the multi-millions would come to spawn and would also travel down the river to hit the ocean when they were just smolts. So the salmon life cycle is such that they're born up in the rivers and some species up in altitude, and then as they grow, they mature, they head down the rivers, these freshwater rivers, and then they hit the ocean and then live the next few years, the rest of their lives out in the ocean until their very last few months. They make the trip back up the rivers to spawn, essentially to breed, to have babies, and then they die. So that's the salmon life cycle. The Snake River is one of these massive salmon habitats. And so when these dams went up, it really impeded the pathway of these salmon and killed salmon in the millions because salmon can't pass the dams. There are, techniques that the engineers developed in order to try and help mitigate some of this, critical habitat loss to help bring back the salmon, but they were just totally ineffective. When I went to go see the dams, this really hit home for me. I was like personally really disturbed just by the dams and the destruction, and also just their inefficiency. They're not actually contributing, societally in the way that they should be, considering the environmental impact that they could have. And I could talk a lot about that, but yeah, let's talk about the campaign. So we decided we wanted to get involved with creating and developing, pushing out a message to governmental bodies that have the power to actually breach these dams. So we developed a campaign with some of our partners. It was really cool to see, and it was really focused on contacting the governor of Washington State and requesting that the dams be breached. And the governor was going to be making a decision in November whether or not it was going to be something they were going to look at. So we were really on a tight timeline, and we ended up getting thousands of people around the world actually calling into the governor's office, and it was really cool to just see that impact. And the phones, apparently I had heard from the people, the office staffs, they were just ringing off the hook. People being put on hold, all just to say, can you breach the dams? So it was pretty amazing to see.
And that was your first sort of political campaign that you've been involved in, correct?
Coextinction or myself personally?
Personally.
Personally,
This level.
yeah, I think probably to this degree, yeah, to this level of depth or intensity involvement. We actually went down to Oregon State and participated in a protest outside of the Army Corps of Engineers, as well as the company that runs the dams. We were outside their building protesting. So that, alongside with all of the online protesting and the conversations and the coverage that we're going to have, of course, in the film, definitely have been quite involved in it, and very personally, connected to it as well.
So my question is, do you think there is like a stigma around getting involved in political campaigns? Like, do you think people are afraid to get involved, or do they think that they're not effective?
Oh,
And with your recent experience, like, do you think people should be more involved, and or is there something better or more effective that people could be doing?
that's a really great question. Yeah, I think that um, actually, before my involvement with this dams campaign and even the film as a whole, I honestly thought that activists, the classic idea of people picketing outside of governmental buildings, were wasting. They were people who were wasting their time, and I thought they were annoying. I thought it was because it was so. I thought it was ineffective. Just the image, the classic image of the activists like screaming, demanding and outside of these buildings. And I've always been much more of a proponent for the idea of sustainable business practice, of social enterprise or investment, or even like just cultural shifts. So documentary filmmaking, just storytelling. But then through this experience, I really learned just how incredibly wrong I was. And I think I definitely, my experience or my preconceived idea of how effective it was is probably shared by, a lot of people, in that people don't see actually the impact that it can have, that your voice can have. I think it's almost become a cliche saying, like your voice matters, and it's almost like it's oversaid, and people are become numb to it, or they almost just like they can't believe it. But in reality, I've seen like the power of individual voice, and also just the voice of a community coming together. But it's logical. So if you just look at how politicians, the way that the world works, how politicians make decisions, it's just based on the emotion of the audience that they're trying to appeal to. So it's literally, like, what does the public want? What do they want? And the politicians will appeal to that. That's literally their job. So it's then the public's job to actually speak out and say what they want. And if there's enough demand for something, there will be a return from the political body. So yeah, that's what I learned. You have to just put pressure on the people who are making the decisions. If you can't go out and do something about it yourself, get a bunch of people, communicate the idea and why it's necessary, and put a lot of pressure on the governing bodies.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I had a very similar view as you. And like sometimes you just have to think back on history. Like the major movements were caused by these, people speaking out on different issues. And yeah, I think sometimes we have this image of these like riots, and it's not seen, comes off as negative, but a lot of these major kind of steps forward, like as far as like humans on this earth and progressing, it came from kind of that activism. So thank you for speaking about that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned community there in your last in the last question, and I was wondering if you could speak about how your community around this film has grown and the importance of community and collaboration from a sustainability perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything. And we've been so incredibly lucky. I mean, I can't tell you how grateful I am for the community that currently exists and has uh, been helping us along the way, kind of spread this message, participating in campaigns, helping us with fundraising, and pretty much every facet of what we're trying to create. The community has enabled it. Um, and yeah, and that's been really right from the get go. And so I think that we are lucky in that, our message is kind of clear and obvious, and our mission is strong, and people can kind of get behind it quite easily. So from the get go, we've had people supporting us. But I think in general, if you have a mission, whether or not it's well understood by a, a group publicly already or not, it's so important to facilitate community and to galvanize community, get people stoked basically at the end of the day, because like I said, they're going to be the ones that make it possible. And uh, yeah, in sustainability, especially, I think because sustainability is like a lot of things, but it's sustainability. The term is an idea that is representative of decisions that we make. You can either make a decision that is for sustainability or against sustainability. You're either going to have a positive environmental impact or a negative environmental impact. So it comes down to the decisions that we make, and these decisions are made by individual members who are all part of a community. So it's basically about trying to get people to change the way that they make decisions or be more aware about the decisions that they're making. So having a community allows you to communicate, a set of values, an idea, a mission, so that people can align with that and then actually change how they make decisions in their daily life.
Definitely. I think I'll end with just the final question being, what are your top three key learnings from this experience with the film?
Oh gosh, I've learned so much. I mean, my life has actually pretty radically changed over the past year because of since starting to work on this film. Um, Key learnings, I think, just what comes to mind right away. Number one would be this is going to sound cheesy, but if you have an idea or something that you want to do, um, and you've got a dream, uh, it really comes down to just you holding on to that, and it doesn't matter so much even your skills or your connections or your experience base. Like if there's something that you want to do, you can go out and do it. So just make it happen, and you kind of you there's a lot to be said for just figuring things out along the way. And that's what we've done as a team for the most part. I mean, I wasn't a filmmaker before this, and have kind of just been figuring things out and have been learning so much. The other thing is, yeah, the power of community is just irrefutable. If you are creating anything, you definitely want to be actively, very actively focusing on building relationships and building a community. And then, if you're not creating anything, finding communities for yourself to be a part of is such a purpose delivering aspect of life. It can just like really give you so much opportunity in your life to be a part of something bigger than yourself. And then I guess the third takeaway is um, just get outside, spend more time outdoors in nature, just reconnecting. I think we are so disconnected, and that's almost what is perpetuating this disconnect with the idea of coexistence. When you don't even see the life that's around you in the oceans or the rivers or the mountains, the trees, the forests, like what's around you, it's easy to imagine, to feel like you're in a bubble, and that when you throw something in the garbage, it doesn't have an impact. But so getting out there and connecting with nature not only feels amazing and makes you healthier and happier, it also just allows you to just be more intelligent about how you can contribute to society in a positive way.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Elena. I mean, for taking the time today. I encourage everyone listening to this podcast to go check out Coextinction Film. I have all the links in this post, so please check them out. And I wish you all the best with the film, Elena. And yeah, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. This is fun.
Alrighty. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye, Jen.
Bye.